And this is the time to go back to the basics and make sure they've learned it all.
Bridget, would you support a similar law for Fulton County schools, similar to the law passed in the state of Florida as it relates to sexual education for grades kindergarten through third grade?
Well, I believe that's the bill that DeSantis just signed. Don't say gay bill. And obviously, I would support that. I don't believe our kids need to be told or not told what gender they are, that they need to figure it out. I believe that that'd be a great bill to have here in our schools. I don't know about you, but I heard about this coming here probably 6 or 8 years ago, because in France, they were saying they were doing it. I have missionaries that come every year and stay with me. And they said, yeah, we got that program where you're not even supposed to have girl and boy bathrooms until a kid is at least 8 years old. And I'm like, that is the craziest thing. Where did you guys get that? And they're like, we got it from the United States. We got it from San Francisco. And I'm like, oh, that figures it. So I would fully support a bill like that here. I think it'd be great. And as Matt said, I agree. Our kids need to learn reading, writing, math, and words. Thank you.
Attainable and affordable housing is a growing problem in North Fulton. How do you plan to address that?
Well, it's kind of a tricky question, but I believe we do have some affordable housing everywhere here in North Fulton. But listen, when I was growing up, a lot of my friends, some grew up in Illinois, they lived in Chicago. The Gold Coast was a great place to live. Lincoln Park was a great place to live. Everybody wanted to live there, but everybody couldn't afford to live there. I don't expect that we have to create housing. I believe in a market-driven economy. I believe that our houses should be the value that they should be and not have government interference. I believe people, they may not be able to afford to live here, but eventually, hopefully they'll work hard, they'll move up, they'll move up, they'll move up. That's my thoughts. But I know we do have affordable housing in some areas of Roswell. We do have them in Alpharetta. We have them sprinkled about. But we can't make all of North Fulton County affordable housing. Thank you.
Matthew, attainable and affordable housing is a growing problem in North Fulton. How do you plan to address that?
I think attainable and affordable are really two different things. I saw a number the other day across the United States that people whose family income is $75,000 to $100,000 there's 65 of them to every one home that they can afford. So we're not talking about Section 8 housing here. We're talking about the fact that people with $75,000 to $100,000 income can't find a place to live. And it's not just here, it's across the whole country. And so there are some places that are doing some things with footprints, and I think you'll see some of that is in the Johns Creek City Center plan, where they've got some smaller homes that have a more affordable kind of price to them. We lived, when I first bought my first house, it was a townhouse in Marietta. It was, I could afford to live in it. Sold it, made a profit, and like many of you, we kept doing that over and over until I could live in the house I have. But when we have a situation that middle income and middle upper income can't afford homes, that's a big problem. And it's going to require a lot of work to figure out. It's not an easy solution.
Okay. I'm sorry, you're up again. Fulton County, Matthew, is comprised of 3 very distinct regions: North Fulton, South Fulton, and the city of Atlanta. How do you plan to balance the needs of those different regions? And more specifically, how do you plan to ensure that all of the North Fulton tax money is not going to support the needs of South Fulton and Atlanta?
this one doesn't have a very easy answer. Again, until we have enough votes on the Fulton County Commission to move significant amounts of money, it's pretty hard to do. But I can tell you that there are a lot of things in that budget that is about $1.25 billion. $850 million of it is operating. That can come here. Or that doesn't need to come at all. I mean, it's like 9 mils. It's a very small amount of your property tax, but it's over a very large base. We spend here's a good one for you, we spend $26 million a year on inmate health care. That $26 million up here could do a whole lot to help Johns Creek build their legacy center. And so I think picking through the budget, finding pieces that you can get agreement with at least one other commissioner so that you can get a 4-3 vote in the budget and move it is the way we're going to have to do that from now until someday we have a majority on council, which means on the commission, which means you need the at-large position, which we haven't had, 10 or 15 years now?
Fulton County is comprised of 3 very distinct regions, North Fulton, South Fulton, and the city of Loudoun. How do you plan to balance the needs of those different regions? More specifically, how do you plan to ensure that all of the North Fulton tax money is not going to support the needs of South Fulton and Atlanta?
I'm glad you got that question first. Actually, a couple weeks ago, I was down in South Fulton. I was invited to an extraordinary women's breakfast for women who were running for office. It was great. It was great meeting the people and listening to the concerns that they had in South Fulton. I feel like as a commissioner, I need to go down there. I need to see and meet those people. I need to learn what their concerns are. And then I need to be able to say, okay, I understand. But can you bring some of the money back up here to North Fulton County? I understand the needs of the city of Atlanta. I lived there for a number of years. But they can't take all our tax money either. We need to learn to work with the new mayor, Mayor Andre Dickens. We need Atlanta to be more sustainable on its own tax base. In North Fulton County, we need our tax dollars up here. I was listening to a commissioners meeting, and they were going to give COVID bonuses, 3% to every single Fulton County employee. Commissioner Abdurrahman was the one who presented it, with a minimum of $3,000. And her reasoning was because 80% of Fulton County employees are black. That shouldn't be a reason. We need our tax dollars spread evenly across the county. We need our tax dollars to be based on need, not on color. Thank you.
Okay. Legislature often considers changing the Constitution and enabling casino gaming in Georgia. Do you support allowing a casino in Atlanta and Fulton County?
Oh, Brandon Beach is a really good friend of mine, so I hate to say it because he's always the one who's proposing this bill. But I am not for gambling. Gambling does not bring in the type of clientele that we want in Fulton County. Gambling brings in crime. Crime brings in sex trafficking. Gamblers, 1 out of 5 committed suicide, addicted gamblers that is. Gambling isn't a good thing to bring in to try to lure people to our city. We need to bring in more, better, positive things, but not gambling.
Matthew, legislature often considers changing the Constitution and enabling casino gaming in Georgia. Do you support allowing a casino in Atlanta and Fulton County?
Fortunately, it's not going to be something that Fulton County Commission is going to weigh in on. The horse racing bill that Senator Beach Beach put together, I think has now officially died for this round, which was a kind of an unusual place I thought to start. And so, I think if you look at some places that have casino gambling, it's not generally right in the middle of the city. They put it out a little bit further so that you don't have the kinds of issues that you would expect. But I think we're a long way from there. If we can't get to horse racing, it doesn't seem like it's going to be casino gambling for quite a long time. So that, in fact, it's not something the Fulton County Commission is ever going to deal with. Not something to worry about now.
Really?
I think I'm going to hang it now, Tom.
What would be your trigger to compromise your principles to support your party leadership?
I don't know what that question really means. I got the question, I just got to understand the trigger. I guess there's a core set of principles to me that I have, and I think, I'll tell you, I have no tolerance for racism. And if our party began to push racism, that'd be a trigger for me. I have no tolerance for it. I've experienced it. I've watched others experience it, and it's just not right. And if it's something that began to spread to our party, that'd create that problem for me.
Bridget, what would be your trigger to compromise your principles to support your party leadership?
I am glad you got that one first.
That's twice.
Yes. I am not a party person, I'm a principle person. I stand on my principles, so I would never compromise my principles for my party. I'm sorry. My trust in God, my love of my family and my country, and my service to others are my core principles, and I would never compromise those. Thank you.
How do you feel about how the elections are run, and do you have any recommendations for improvement?
What side is it? 10 seconds.
It's stacked against you. I feel the elections are run extremely poorly, obviously, since I've been down there for over a year fighting our elections. I think that they could run more smoothly if we had better qualified people working our elections. Fulton County has a temporary staffing model. It's like a jobs program. The temporary staffing company that they were using is based in DeKalb County. So they bring in people that could care less about our elections. They probably don't even vote themselves. These people are poorly trained, they're poorly educated. Yet they are the ones that are accepting and rejecting our votes. They're the ones that are training other poll workers. We need to have better trained people, and we need the community. We need all of you involved in our election process to make it run better. We need people that care. We need people who value the vote and value the voter. We don't need happy-faced employees that could care less. That's how we can improve our election system.
Matthew, how do you feel about how our elections are run, and do you have any recommendations for improvement?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. I think 2020 was certainly a mess. 2017, when I ran it, wasn't clean. I gave all of you one idea, but I had to increase voter transparency, and that is to let you see the tapes as they come in on your phone. I think that would help a lot. But I don't think this thing ever gets cleaned up to the point where you all want it to be cleaned up when we have significant numbers of people that aren't voting in person. I mean, it's really just that simple. People have to vote in person. We'll see if this is a hard one first. I think Tom's got it.
Do you support school vouchers, Matthew?
You know, that one's been running around forever, and it never seems to get anywhere, but I do. I really think that when you create some level of free market and education, the cream will rise to the top, or to the top. You know, I think about where our kids went to school. We had to move there for them to go to school there. We just heard that, you know, people can't can't live here because of the cost of it. Well, I mean, wouldn't it be nice if the kids had a chance to go to school here? You know, if they chose to use their voucher to do that. So I don't quite understand, frankly, what the big issue is. You know, let's try it and see what happens. Let's try it in the area and see what happens. But it just shouldn't be that big of a deal, big of a problem. And I think it helps pretty much everybody. So yeah, I'd be much in favor of it.
Bridget, do you support school vouchers?
I absolutely support school vouchers, school choice. I believe our tax dollars should follow the student wherever they want to go. I believe that poorly performing schools should have competition, that they should try to compete to retain the students and retain the dollars in their schools. And if they underperform so bad, then maybe they just disappear, or someone has to take them over. But I fully support giving the children a chance to not be locked in to a school. This affects people who can't afford to pull their kids out and send them to private school. That's what's so harmful about it. And I only hope that eventually our legislature will pass the school choice bill. I'm not sitting down. I got it.
With inflation increasing in the country, what do you believe the Fulton County government can do to help alleviate this burden?
Well, with everything increasing these days, gas, food, supply chain issues, housing, everything, I think it's more important now than ever that we start reeling in our government spending. We need to reduce our taxes so that our citizens have more money in their pockets to be able to afford the things that cost so much more, just the basic things that cost so much more. I believe that we need to scope through, audit every single department. When we looked at the elections department's audit, it was shocking how poorly they spent our money. They gave Dominion basically a blank check to staff our warehouse. They had allotted $450,000, and Dominion's bill came in at almost $2 million. There were no checks and balances. And the commissioners in the meeting, Natalie Hall, made a comment, well, why are we picking on the elections department? All our departments are like that. So I made a public comment about all our departments being like the elections department, and maybe our city manager, Dick Anderson, needs to kind of crack down on some other departments. And then that was kind of reprimanded. Oh, you're not supposed to talk bad about Dick Anderson because he's a really good guy. And honestly, I do. I think he's a really smart, brilliant guy. But I think we need to cut out the wasteful spending, lower our taxes, keep more money in our pockets.
Matthew, with inflation increasing in the country, what do you believe Fulton County government can do to help alleviate this burden?
Well, first I have to agree with what Bridget just said, and I think that if you want somebody to go through a budget and figure out what you can do more efficiently, you should hire a CFO or a CPA to do it. That's the background I have, that's what I've spent my whole life doing. And I've spent a significant number of weeks now pouring through the public parts of the Fulton County budget. There's an awful lot in there, but look, we can cut the Fulton County budget fairly significantly and it will hardly impact most of you because it's such a small amount of millage rate. You know, we're not gonna fix the problem of inflation by things like a $15 minimum wage. I mean, it's the craziest thing that I've ever heard because As soon as you took the $7.50 guys and raised them to 15, what do you think the $15 an hour guys did? They wanted 25. And the $25 an hour guys, they wanted 50. And it goes all the way on up to jobs of CEOs and CLOs. We've changed the pay schedules so significantly, both in the public and private sector, because of that one move. And somehow we've got to figure out how to never do it again.
With inflation. Yeah, we did. We did that one. So you just finished. You're up. Sorry.
Oh, you're on.
Did you answer the inflation question?
Yes. Oh, yeah, we messed up.
Sorry about that.
We don't have this right.
That's fine.
That's
We
all right.
both-
We
we
got
both
3
lose
minutes.
each other.
Maybe we'll get it right because if we
Okay.
that's messed up.
Did the House people do better at this?
They had less questions. There were 3 people. Okay. Do you support teaching critical race theory in Fulton County schools?
I knew this was coming. No. Again, we stopped teaching cursive handwriting. Kids can't even sign their name on the bottom of a check. And now we want to teach them something completely different. Again, they're 3 years behind. I mean, how are we going to get them caught up if we start teaching completely new things? Here's personal finance, right? I can't tell you how many families, kids have come to me and said, how do I save for retirement? How do I pay my bills? How do we do all these things that are important? I'd like to see us teaching that kind of thing before we start teaching things like critical race theory.
Bridget, do you support the teaching of critical race theory in Fulton County schools?
Absolutely not. I believe what Martin Luther King said, that you judge a man by his character and not his color. That's how I was raised. My mother's parents came from Mexico. They migrated here. So I'm fully aware of discrimination, but I was raised not to see color. And I really believe that our kids need to be raised that way. I don't think they need to see themselves as an oppressor or the oppressed. I had a friend that sent her son to a very expensive Lovett school down in Atlanta. Her son was taught that he was a white European settler here in America. He was born at Piedmont Hospital. I mean, really, that's what you're teaching your kids. They did leave that school. They had to pay the whole tuition, but they said it was worth it. We're getting out of here. And they transferred schools. I think critical race theory is a Marxist theory. We should not support any form of Marxism in the United States. Not only should we not teach critical race theory, we should make it illegal if it's taught in our public schools. And there you go for the school voucher system. That's one more reason why we need vouchers, to get kids out of those schools if they don't, or parents do not want their kids taught that. Because they're just going to rename it. They're just going to rebrand it. Our teachers have so much influence over our kids. And I'm so glad to see parents rising up right now and fighting this. And I'm so thankful that I don't have kids in elementary school right now.
How do you propose countering the increase in violent crime in Fulton County? Your turn.
It's such an easy fix. No, it's not. Unfortunately, as I earlier addressed you, our open borders are causing a huge influx of crime in our country. As I said before, Fannie Willis said 70 to 90% of the crime in Atlanta is coming from gangs. And it's a Mexican cartel, and there's a gang, LA Crips and Blood, I think is what it's called, that have infiltrated Atlanta. We need to stop the gang activity. We need to get our kids, save our kids, get them out of those schools that have gangs if we have to. They're hitting them when they're 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. They're selling drugs to fund their operation. So then we have a huge drug problem here in Atlanta. We need to counter that. We need to get police task forces, whatever we can to protect our families. It's worth it. Thank you.
Matthew, where were we? Yeah, how do you propose countering the increase in violent crime in Fulton County?
You know, as long as criminals know that they're not going to jail, as long as criminals know they're not going to be prosecuted, as long as criminals know that you're going to let them out as soon as you arrest them, like let them right out of the police car, we're not going to solve this problem. And so what Fulton County can do is Fulton County can fully fund our prosecutors, we can fully fund our courts, and we can fully fund reopening a jail facility up here in North Fulton County. When criminals know they can't be criminals, you'll stop a whole bunch of this. And this really started when it became clear that Atlanta wasn't supporting the police officers, and some 500 of them left. I know we hired many of them in Roswell when they left. And that just worked its way out north, probably worked its way south too. Criminals have to know that that crime doesn't pay.
Do you support returning to paper ballots?
You know, I heard a lot about that. I don't really understand what returning to paper ballots really means. What I support is what I've said before: is you go into a booth, you vote in person, and one thing you shouldn't do is when you do have your piece of paper, putting it into a machine that looks like a giant paper shredder. No, seriously, I mean, look at that thing. Your ballot came out, it was really cool, it had a little code at the bottom, and the first thing you did with it was put it in the machine that went. Okay? So, I'm not completely sure how you're going to count millions and millions of paper ballots, but, you know, for years and years we voted with little machines. We flipped a little switch, and that seemed to work pretty well. It was manual. You knew how many people came in to the location, you knew how many people left. It's pretty simple process and control. Where this thing gets out of control is when you start having hundreds and thousands and millions of votes coming from various ways and various places. So whether that's in the mail, whether that's in a Dropbox, whether that's wherever it is, it's impossible to control that. And so as long as we continue to have that happen, it's going to be hard to get control of that process time.
Bridget, do you support returning to paper ballots?
Yes, kind of a little bit no. I've been studying the whole election process system, and I've sat and listened to people from all around the country and different voting systems that they're implementing. And it seems right now in Arizona, Mark Finchem, the senator there, has a paper ballot that's much more secure. It's not like a paper ballot you can print out from a machine. It's a paper ballot that has a hologram on it. It has measures so you can track your ballot after you voted. I know your vote's supposed to be anonymous, but there's a way that you can have that. You can track your ballot, and only you know where your ballot is so that it can be counted. I think it's good that we have a machine that can tabulate and get us our numbers quickly. I think we should have scanners that scan our ballots and get that number quickly. And those scanners must have open source software, not secret hidden Dominion software with a QR code that's going to be interpreted and you don't know what's going to come out once it comes through that machine. I believe that in this last election, in the lawsuit to examine the 147,000 absentee ballots, when we usually only have 29,000 ballots, I believe there was fraud, and that's a paper ballot. I think we need to account for our blank paper ballots as much as we count for our live paper ballots. I was missing 400 ballots from my precinct right here, JC 13, A and B. No one to this day can tell me